Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hello, welcome to the COB this afternoon, this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Juliette Sarli. Great to have your company. Let's have a look at where the local market is tracking. Down around 0.2% there on the CBO 200. The ASX 200, as we head into the match off, is lower by a similar amount, 0.2%. So that's despite the fact that we did think that we might have a little bit of green on the screen today, but of course it is all about Nvidia tonight, the expectations, worries about what that's going to mean for AI spending in 2026, weighing on investor sentiment, and we just didn't really see too many catalysts for investors to move into stocks today. Should point out though that the gold stocks of course had a really good session as we see a lot more money going back into precious metals. The banks though weighing the financial sector down by around 1.2%. So it really is a day of these losses with a 6-month low ahead of chipmaker Nvidia's earnings. And hello, Webjet. Webjet surging today with Helloworld lobbing this 90-cent a share takeover bid after quietly amassing somewhat of a sizable stake. It already owns about 17% of Webjet. Webjet has agreed to allow Helloworld to look at its books. And the shares, of course, have been flatlining quite a bit since May after they warned that underlying earnings for 2026 could fall. But Webjet did report first half profit up 51% today. And then, of course, it is all about Nvidia's make or break. We're going to talk about that with our guest, Mark Gardner from MPC Markets, coming up shortly. But let's have a quick look at some of the sectoral moves today as well, particularly as we saw some money go back into gold. So that's lifted the likes of Northern Star, Evolution Mining up 2.5%. Ramelius had a good day as well, up by some 3%. Having a quick look at the travel impact on the back of that Webjet bid. So Helloworld and Webjet both looked good, but the rest of the travel stocks coming back today. Web Travel Group down 3.5%, Virgin off by 1.3% at $3.03 there. And also a quick look at the banks, which, as I mentioned, was the weakest performing sector today, down by some 1.2%. Combank continuing to get dumped, down 0.8%, $151.59. Well, let's get to what Helloworld and Webjet did. We mentioned as well, Webjet saying cost of living pressures elevated airfares affecting the overall travel market, but investors do like this takeover bid, up 16% on the close. TPG Telecom, this is of course not a great story that we are hearing this news that a Sydney customer was unable to reach 000 due to an outdated Samsung phone. At the same time, TPG resuming trading after raising $300 million from Insto investors as part of its reinvestment plan. KMD Brands also in focus, says it's had an encouraging start to the financial year. And New Farm up an impressive 11.5% after it forecasts stronger underlying growth for 2026. Droneshield, though, heading the other way. This is after its US CEO resigned effective immediately. Shares down 19%. REA there, also a bit of a change at the C-suite with Andrew Kramer, Chief Financial Officer, and Seek appointing Greg Roebuck as chairman. Let's make sense of it all with Mark Gardner from MPC Markets, who joins me now. And Mark, it has not been a very good time to be an equity investor of late.
Well, we've let it down as well.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get a chance to, to be exiting really unless you took a bit of a chance. So it's and now the US is sort of catching up to us, I suppose, for different reasons. But we've got two massive events over the next couple of days. First payrolls number in a couple of months, but it does go all the way back to September now. Probably won't include the lion's share of those October layoffs announced by a lot of the S&P 500 companies, but yeah, it should be interesting, and we're not going to get all of the number. I think there's an element missing where they won't be able to do an unemployment rate. So expecting about 50,000 up at the moment, but I couldn't imagine that the figures are going to be. I think they've had about 4 or 5 days to pull them together. So it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts there, and of course Nvidia in the morning, which has been the tentpole of the AI rally, and every time we've looked weak, it's kind of saved things. So I'd be options market's got it priced at having probably a move of around about 6 to 8%, which is pretty high. To put that in context, it's like on the day it's going to move 2.5 BHPs potentially is what the market's saying. That's 320 billion market cap shift, but volatility in the VIX have gone higher. I expect any disappointment from them is going to really undermine the AI or any support for the AI rally if it continues to go down, because I think we're down about 5% in the last 5 days now in the US.
I just had a little long-time caller, long-time viewer, long-time attendee on AusBiz, David Scott, sending me a note that we should also point out that the movement in the SPY futures here falling below the 200-day moving average. So quite a lot of wobbles out there.
We had the S&P and the Nasdaq drop below the 50-day moving average for the first time since April, and it's getting pretty close to the 100-day moving average. But 200-day moving average is a huge deal that's SPY futures. But yeah, if it gets back under there and we get some negativity out of the US in the coming days, look out, I suppose. But it has been an extraordinary rally, and it's been an extraordinary, not only 6 months, but out of that April low, but the best 3-year rally since the mid-90s. So a little bit of context for investors is there's no sort of shame in going back to a bit of cash, getting a little bit organised, because I do believe, and we strongly believe at MPC, the AI thematic's real. There's revenue there, etc. But there was so many red flags. They're even saying the Oracle deal, which was 300 billion with OpenAI, which a month ago, is already been revalued down to 74 billion. So there were some really, I've lived through many black swans in the last 30 yeast. There was some very clear alarm bells at the top of the market where it was getting quite silly, and we've also seen margin lending just absolutely go through the roof in the US, which means obviously in the US they work quite differently. You can use your existing stock like your Nvidia or your Bitcoin, etc. It can all be interrelated for you to be able to go and margin buy other stocks. So when those those cornerstone stocks like Nvidia pull back, to maintain your positions, and it obviously pushes your margin lending higher, and it looks like a hockey stick. It just goes like that in the last four months. So leverage fueled rallies don't tend to end well if there's a reason for them to head lower. So maybe the October seasonal weakness comes a little bit late, and then we get the Christmas rally in the new year, perhaps. But
it's always, as we said the other day, time to go shopping as well. Speaking of going shopping, what did you make of Helloworld's bid for Webjet?
I think consolidation in the travel sector makes a lot of sense, really. It's very much become, like most online businesses, it's a scale game, and if they're going to compete, I think there are I think you interviewed a fellow, was it the luxury travel escapes?
Yeah, Adam Schwab.
That's at the other end of the scale where I think they had luxury escapes. You kind of want that concierge style feel, and their bricks and mortar actually does work, and people do tend to spend more, but aimed at a very niche part of the market. Whereas I think in these sort of cut price or discount style travel agents. Scale is a huge thing, because they can buy bulk and from the hotels and the airlines, etc., which brings the prices down, makes them more competitive overall. And it's still subject to regulatory approval. But as you can see with both of them being up today, usually one of them, if one's the bidder, usually drops a little bit, and then you've obviously got the upside in the company that's being taken over. But the fact that both of them are up today, I think, is a reflection that the market thinks the same thing, is that consolidation is a good thing in the industry.
What about Droneshield? We've talked about this stock to Vince a lot. Oleg Vornik selling a lot of shares. One of the newspapers reporting today that's because he needed to buy a $7 million home. But then the US CEO exiting too. I mean, is this like... What are we thinking?
We don't know too many details around the US CEO exiting. I'd like to see more detail around that. But I mean, to be honest, the uproar around this, I think, is completely unjustified. The market was pricing this at nearly 9 billion market cap on 120 million in contract wins. And I'd be more concerned if the directors didn't sell at silly prices like that, because it would be lunacy not to sell at an overvalued. Just because the people were paying $6 a share, I mean, they're the ones that were wrong, not the directors. They were incentive shares. They've sold out of them. I mean, that's what share markets are about, isn't it? People are. I mean, I don't think we should be harsh on people for making money. That's the whole point of it. And the company was overvalued. We're big fans of Droneshield. We were not at $6, but we've been buying in the last week. And and I think the press has really turned on them, and obviously the forums like Hot Copper and Twitter and things like that have all turned. But at the end of the day, it's a capitalist industry, and I don't think there was anything
below
untoward.
$2 where it is now looks pretty good.
I think that looks really good. I mean, the civilian applications. I did an interview with him for a defence webinar that we did a couple of months ago, and the civilian applications I think opens up a really large. Large news sector to them. They're like stadiums for the Olympics and things, where obviously that's a terrorist threat for drones, and things like that. So they've got a lot of other technologies and an AI platform. So they're a better company than what they were when they were just selling the handheld guns. There was a bit of a hatchet job in the AFR today about that technology's old. Well, we've known that for 2 years. That I think that's just at the moment everyone's the press is feeding into the fear, but I don't think from a company standpoint they've not done anything that they haven't said they were going to do, and I don't think you can begrudge someone for taking a win on a bunch of hard work done over 5 years. So I think it's a bit of an overreaction, and probably really good value here. EOS as well. I mean, we saw. I mean, EOS never got that magical rally that Droneshield got, but like I said, the market was the one that got carried away. I don't think you even saw the likes of Matt McCrann at the tops in CBA was just saying, here are the earnings. What you guys are paying for, it's up to you.
All right, so a big week. We've also got payrolls data in focus.
Yeah, so as I said, 50,000 they're expecting. I mean, the consensus out there is saying 4.3 for unemployment rate, but there is an element missing which will stop them being able to produce that. It's very backward looking, but I think a big down number is going to shock the market quite a bit. And I think if we were still in, say it was a month ago and we're still in that momentum where nothing was shaking this rally, I think they'd dismiss these numbers, but I think we're far more sensitive now than we were a month ago to bad news. So I think the reaction could be outsized to what the figure comes out, and then I would imagine they're going to hurry up to try and get the October numbers out. But most of the layoffs that we've done, we did a DIY employment. It's based off publicly announced layoffs, and October is probably the worst numbers. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. But we're only going to get, I think, CPI and employment numbers are what the BLS is going to focus on for the next month, and they'll play catch up in the others. But as far as a lead on retail goes, I think Home Depot's numbers weren't great last night. It was down about 10% or something. So we've got a bunch of retailers also reporting in the morning. I think Target,
TJX,
Lowe's. So that'll effectively replace, I think, for investors, it'll replace the retail sales numbers. Until we get a little bit more clarity. But yeah, it's uncharted waters. We've never had a situation like this where we've never had numbers. So the economists will be putting up their feet, I suppose. If you can't analyse the economy if you don't have the data.
Indeed. You know who's not putting their feet up? People like you and me will be watching Nvidia. We'll be getting all across it. So
yes, I'll be watching that very closely in the morning.
Mark, thank you. Mark Gardner from MPC Markets, of course, the big one, Nvidia. It's going to really move global markets. All right, well, the stock of the day was Helloworld, and Andrew spoke to our experts, Michael Gable from Fairmont Equities, Philip Pepe from Shaw & Partners.
Webjet's got 110 million costs, strip 10% out, it's 10 million cost savings. You think it's 15% EPS accretive if the deal's done at 90 cents. I think it makes sense for two industry players to combine rather than private equity take out a company and try and strip out costs. You get synergies are better than straight out cost reductions. That doesn't mean BGH won't come back, they might. But the current bid price, I think it makes sense for the two to combine. It'll provide decent EPS accretion to Helloworld, which is not in analyst forecast because it's only just been announced as a maybe. So I'll call it a buy with some upside to come if the deal goes through.
And I guess an interesting tell is that it's actually up 3% today. I mean, the market sort of knew it was coming, but usually these stocks drop when they announce a takeover. So I mean, they're all positive signs. have to admit the long-term chart I'm not very happy with. It obviously got belted with COVID and hasn't, it's sort of struggled since then. But on this shorter-term chart, since bottoming out a few months or so ago, it has been improving quite nicely. The trend looks quite interesting.
Thinking about your pre-Christmas shopping? What if you could buy some stonks on sale? Our final virtual event for the year is Cyber Monday. Join expert analysts live as they share their picks of undervalued equities.
We're looking at between 400 and 500% upside.
Because it is going to rally away very, very soon.
Beat the Christmas rush. Register now for Cyber Monday at ausbiz.co/cyber.
All right, let's have a look at the leaders in today's session. GQG Partners having a good session, and we mentioned, of course, all the gold players as well. Also worth noting with Linus, that was on the back of a broker call as well. So we did have quite a bit of movement coming through there as we start to see some re-ratings happening with the overall rare earths area. UBS upgrading the stock to buy, lifting its price target from $15.10 to $17.80 amid this rising demand for rare earths. To the downside today, Droneshield, of course, as we saw the US CEO Matt McCrann resigning effective immediately after serving in the position since 2022. You just heard Mark Gardner say he still thinks it's a good stock, particularly at under $2. Catapult, we spoke to the CEO yesterday. It got hit after its earnings, being hit again today, down 6%. Megaport, that was Jack Stickley from Morgan's call or pick today. You can find out why in our newsletter and on ausbiz.com.au. Superloop and Steadfast under pressure too. In the small end of town, Webjet having a fabulous session on that Helloworld takeover bid at 90 cents per share, getting close to that takeover target bid, up 16% to 88 cents. To the downside in the small end of town, these stocks didn't do well, including Freelancer, which was down 8% to 23 cents. Let's have a look at what we're expecting tonight. Of course, Nvidia's results, also minutes from the FOMC's last meeting, the US trade balance, and housing starts and building permits for October. Also worth noting, as we mentioned, a lot of these retailers coming through, and Mark made a good point that will basically replace the retail sales figures. So you've got Lowe's, Target, TJX all coming through as well. Tomorrow locally, fair few RBA people speaking, including Sarah Hunter and also Ellis Connolly, while on the AGM front we hear from Boss Energy, Bellevue Gold, Charter Hall and MinRes. Recapping where the local market has finished, down 0.2% on the CBO 200 at the close. The ASX 200 off 0.25%, 21 points, 8,447.9 points. Banks dragging, IT dragging, but those gold players, energy, A-REITs, all looking pretty good. And of course the travel momentum lifting consumer discretionary stocks, that sector up 0.2%. All right, we await to see what tomorrow brings after, as Dan Ives calls it, the godfather of AI reports its earnings. We'll see you live from 9:45 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.